And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, our wonderful producer for the night, none other than the great one himself, Mr. Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 20th day of January, 2026. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's maritime tick, 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 tick matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tuning with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show, same good old two, 101 Pharmacy and of course Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin Shantia Heel McBride and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. Our number one fan for the night, as always, my auntie from way up there in Freeport. Good night, Auntie May. That's my girl, boy. That's my girl. 92 years old. And guess what, people? Tonight, my Auntie May is going to be 93. Not tonight. This year. What are you doing? A little off tonight. But don't watch nothing. Auntie May is going to be 93 before this year roll out. And 94, 95, 96 as the years come on, eh? That's my Auntie May, boy. She going strong. 92 and going strong. And I can tell you strong, and strong. Tonight, we engage discussions on numerous maritime events. The big one, of course, being the rescinding inflated fees for visiting pleasure boats. Also, discussion should be engaged surrounding PPT or PPP port project for Maguana. They have what's called public-private partnership agreement going on in view of getting a maritime hub in that far-fetched island of ours called Maguana. We discussed it a bit last week. We may discuss it more this week. It is our intention. We'll see how it goes. Finally, there's a pledge to enforce the foreign charter yacht rules within our country and get all those millions of dollars that are slipping through our fingers. So, discussion surrounding these hot topics should include the following. The Bahamas pleasure vessel cruising / fishing permit fee amended, rescinded, no more. Well, ho. That's what they say. I have not seen it in black and white. And you know we don't like to allege too much on this show. But based on information circulating, there's going to be a rescinding of that entire portfolio where the boat entry fees for cruising permit was moved from $300 to $500 for vessels below 50 feet long. That's going to revert to $300 again. And of course, for the ones over 50 feet, they say that one was supposed to be it moved from $600 to $1,000. So that's going to revert to $600, eh? So now we're going to be back to $300 and $600, no matter what size your boat is, except if it's over 50 foot, you pay the higher cost, right? And we've been lobbying for that because, in my view, and I wouldn't say many people's view, because a lot of people don't understand what this thing all about, right? This is about pleasure vessels only. This has nothing to do with charter vessels. This has nothing to do with no vessel coming in here to make money. Now, Of course, that is be violated sometimes because some people is coming here clear on the, and very recently we saw in the press where a vessel was arrested in the Exumas, I think off Black Point somewhere. This vessel came in on a cruising permit as a pleasure vessel, but they were doing charters, and they were doing it for some $45,000 per charter or something like that for 5 days. And these fellas, they making $9,000 a day. When they done pay off their fees and their expenses and the crew and all that, they end up with like $6,000 a day. And they ain't paying the government nothing out of that. And the government's supposed to be getting 15% out of 14% of every single charter from that vessel and all the rest. So we have reason to follow these things. We have reason to press, and then there's a commitment by the task force, and we can talk a little bit about that too, to ensure that we collecting it, because we got, they say, almost 50,000 yachts visiting the Bahamas every year. And a big percentage of that amount are charter yachts. And every time a yacht going to be chartering in our country, the government is supposed to be getting at least 14% of that money. And we can talk a little bit more about that, because you know something? Some people say, oh, that's a little hefty. Hefty, my foot. Because if the Bahamian own a vessel, and he's going to be chartering with his vessel, it's going to cost him 10% VAT. So how could you have a foreign vessel coming in here to do the same kind of thing, except they got more plush boat making much more money, and they're only paying 4% for doing that? So no, we have to make them pay more than the Bahamian. The fact is, before VAT, the Bahamian wasn't paying nothing. So if VAT come in, the foreigner, oh, we need to pay VAT. But your charter fees, rates are going up. And I think the government recently moved it from being VAT to being charter fees. And we want to take our charter fee even higher. Let's take it to 20%. Because this country should be getting its fair share. Because if they're making 80% and we making 20%, what's wrong with that? They're making way more than our country making, and they're utilizing our resources, our pretty waters and all the rest. And some of them is more fish and all. And that's what we got to cut out. Plenty of things we got to cut out. Okay, so we talking about pleasure vessels coming in on cruising. But I won't go yet to charter vessels, because those charter vessels, that's a different kettle of fish, eh? Those are the ones who supposed to be paying money to do their charter. Pleasure vessels coming in here just to look around, and they ain't bringing nobody who paying them. They ain't making no money off their trip, that type of thing. And those are the ones that the government went up on the fees on. The charter fees remain the same. You know, they ain't got to pay all this money to enter, because they got a permit. Before they even come into the country to bring their people, they have a permit saying you have permission to come and charter in our waters. Just give us 14% as it is now. We need to move that up to 20 or 25%, because we got the most beautiful water in the world. That's my view, right? And so this is where we at. So the government caught a little flack from our visitors. You know, most of our visitors that are coming by sea are not charter boats. They're pleasure vessels. And the government hiked their rates up by another 40%. And they had a problem with that. Some of them can afford it, you know, but some people don't like to feel exploited. And I with them, right? Now, what we need to do, and I'm going to have a guest calling tonight. And my guest is on the same page. In addition to paying that entry fee or that cruising permit fee, we want, me and my guest, and I call your name in a minute, we want the government to charge a levy in addition to that for environmental protection. And that levy for environmental protection is something totally new, not paid before. So we would say how much that levy is going to be based on what other areas may charge for that type of thing, right? If it be $100 fine, if it be $500 fine, but they can pay that levy, and they can pay that every time they're in our waters. And not only are the pleasure vessels going to pay that, the charter vessels, in addition to that 15 or 16, 14 or 20% they can pay, going to have to pay that levy as well. And every Bahamian local vessel that are registered with the Port Department, whether you registered as a pleasure vessel or you registered as a vessel that apply for hire, You got to pay that too. Because all of y'all out there helping to mess up the water. All the fishing boats, all the mail boats, no matter what kind of boat you got, even a jet ski, you got to pay that too. That's my view. And I see no way of making these people pay their fair share since they're using our waters and they're polluting our seas and they garbage on top of garbage all over the coastline. Come on, man, you got to pay for that, right? Now, what the government need to do? Of course, that's going in the treasury, but we need to know how much of that is being paid and going into the treasury, because at the end of the day, that same amount should be transferred from the treasury into the budget of the Ministry of the Environment, so that the ministry could now properly manage educating the Bahamian people on not littering and polluting the seas and our coastal lines, right? More enforcement, although I don't think we need too much more enforcement now. The Defense Force alone could capture this enforcement. In addition, of course, with the obligations of the Port Department under the Foreign Yacht Charter rules, because they've been getting away forever with that, right? We don't need no private citizen to be running no portal, talking about they collecting fees for the government, and there's a mandate under the Yacht Charter rules for the Port Department to collect these fees. We need to make the Port Department do what they are mandated to do. And they trying to pass this off to no entity. Would say they collecting on behalf of the government, and who they going to be responsible to if something going wrong? No, the Port Department. The Port Department is responsible, and the Port Department, just like how the Port Department could bring a team of Defense Force personnel, officers and ratings, to manage the ISPS, International Ship and Port Facility Security Regulations, to ensure that all these port facilities that receive international ships in this country are meeting its mandate under the ISPS code. And I can tell you that since the government did that just before COVID, these facilities are now sharp on the track. They are up to speed. But you know why the government did that? Because the U.S. Coast Guard threatened that if you don't get your port facilities in order, it's a possibility that we may stop vessels from coming into the U.S. when they leave Bahamian ports. And guess what? The government know that they can't allow that to happen. So what they did? They brought in a team, I see, but 8 to 10 Defense Force personnel, placed them in the Port Department, and the only mandate they have is to go and license and inspect and ensure that the experts who doing all the audits and what all these places are doing it properly, and these places are up to speed. That's all their job was, and that's all their job is, and that continuing, and all the facilities are now up to standard. So if the government could do that with the Coast Guard mandate threatening our country, do we have to wait for Coast Guard mandate for the government to get a group of Defense Force people, put them in the Port Department to collect revenue for foreign yacht charter permits? That's millions and millions of dollars going down the crack. And not only that, these people pay when they feel like. What's worst? And I can tell you because I know a lot of these agencies in the U.S., because that's where all of them are, they would collect it from these boat owners and keep it and don't give it to the government. So they're getting rich off what our government should be getting as foreign permit yacht charter fees. I know. It was happening from I was in the port. And I was told by some of the ship inspectors and whatnot when I used to go to the boat shows. I know it's happening. It's still happening. They're getting rich because our Port Department failed to do their job as mandated by the foreign yacht charter rules. So since you're failing, instead of trying to find a civilian organization to collect what you're supposed to collect, do the same thing you did with ISPS. Bring in a group of Defense Force officers and ratings and place them somewhere in the Ministry of Transport or the Port Department and let it be their job to chase up this hundreds of millions of dollars every year. They say over 40,000 vessels moving through. At least when 10,000 of them is for as charters, eh? You know how much money that is? One ship, one yacht. Let's say a yacht is 80 foot long. Do you know, my friend, that 80-foot long yacht actually rents or charters that vessel for at least $1,000 per foot per week? So if they're 80 foot long, that's $80,000 per week. And I say per month, per week, once people are on that boat. And usually they go out for 2 weeks, especially if we get into the land and sea park and stuff like that, right? And they doing these charters over and over again, making all this money. And out of that, the government is supposed to get 14%. And I can guarantee you, the government may be collecting 5% of what's out there. 5%. Because ain't nobody chasing it up. Slackers. Port department, they can't tell you what's going on. And I know. And I wish one of them called me and tell me the truth. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, before I run to what tonight, I want to bring in my guest. My guest is calling in all the way from, is that Fresh Creek, Andrew? I think it's Fresh Creek. He can fix me up in a minute. Mr. Prescott I. Smith extraordinaire. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Louis?
Oh, I'm in top shape and getting better all the time. You see a little hot under the call API.
I know you have, but see, this is important. This is an important subject you're dealing with.
Yeah, so before we go to those other things, because we got a lot to talk about tonight, I just want you to give a little introductory, because you're the fellow who been highlighting all the bad that was going on with our marine reserves and with our coastal line, and you've been keeping up with what's going on in Crooked Island. You're the big fly fish guru, and I'm so happy to know you, Brother Prescott.
I'm doing what you're doing, Glenn, because, we're serving our country, and God put us here to do our part to make sure the next generation. So we got a lot of work to do. Those who came before us, some of them did their part to get us where we are, but as you can see, your task and my task, with the way technology is changing, it's accelerating at a rapid pace. So we got a lot to deal with, but it's not like back in the day when you had 8-track cassette and vinyl album.
Absolutely.
Before you get up to date with one thing, it's already outdated, and the next thing is in.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening, even when you think about the technology in the maritime world. GPS and you got Starlink, and people can move anywhere in the world and function. It ain't no.
You don't have to navigate anymore. Because if you get a chart plotter, you could see where you are at all times.
You got my point.
Yes, sir.
What I mean?
Back in the day when I used to go to sea, we had one radar. The radar was only good for about, it would pick up for about 7-8 miles. Anytime something is beyond that, although it said 36 miles, man, you ain't gonna see nothing. So we did a lot of night patrol, so that helped us a lot. And that's how I learned, because with the radar, you can actually see, where the land is supposed to be. You can see the shape of the land. So if a vessel is behind a rock, you will see that blip. And you will know a vessel is behind it. And if you don't see no light, you know that's liable to be somebody who's trying to hide. And that's what we did back in the day. But I understand the fellas don't do that no more on defense force boats. They look at the chart plot. The chart plot is not going to give them a vessel behind a rock. They don't seem to understand that. They just feel like, oh, well, we just want to keep the boat safe. But, man, I tell you, I came up on the Jackson Ritchie, Talis Bethel, Albert and Bristow, and then I brought up people like Elvin Fowler, Herbie Bain, and a lot, Lauren Klein. It's a back then, boy, we were serious. We used to go hunting.
Hunting is correct. I remember patrolling many days, around Maguana.
Absolutely.
Iowa.
Yes, sir.
And then
we had people.
I served with Albert and Bristol too. David Douglas.
Yes, man.
Herbie Bain.
Yeah. Bachelor LaFleur.
Every course you cut, with Albert and Bit, it was a good fishing drop.
Yeah, Albert is a ragged island man, you know. You
You better get your line ready to catch a red snapper while you're there.
Oh yeah, so don't he wasn't like Godfrey Roll.
That's
Godfrey
good.
Godfrey used to try avoid those areas.
Well,
He didn't care for no fishing. He just want to keep that boat safe.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
he had deep water. So
yeah,
you better fish for red snapper.
yeah, yeah. You
That's
know
what he
you got
said.
the ocean
That's
nearby.
the best.
Absolutely. Those were some good days, man. But you know, today they got, like you say, they got GPS and Starlink and everything that they know where they are at all times. Just and they got a chat plotter, which is like a TV screen.
Yes.
And you can just touch it and it tells you everything you want to know. And then they had this thing after the radar came, the APA. But APA's been played out now. That was replaced with this thing called EGDIS. You see, I was piloting ships in and out the harbor too, so I was kind of keeping up with this stuff.
Yes.
But
Exactly.
yeah, and, and,
And
and like you say,
all of that brings home the point that you made earlier. When you think about as a country,
hmm
we have a lot of serious issues to deal with, and I think it's worse than people realize it is because of our unique environment that we're blessed with. Also, they're not going to stop building boats.
no, boats
And
are always going to be built. Yeah,
and when you think about you don't create any geography like the Bahamas in the world. You either have it or you don't.
yeah, remain unchanged. Remain unchanged. Now you could mess it up, like you always tell people. We could lose what we have by allowing it to be messed up.
Right. So if you do the numbers, and you go back and say, well, when there was 5,000 boats and 10,000 and 20,000 and 30,000, and then you say, we know they're not going to stop building boats. They're not going to stop building Yamaha,
That's right.
Suzuki, Honda, other players coming into space. More boat manufacturers are coming into space.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about the Bahamas, we either get serious about managing our marine environment or the very jewel that we've been blessed with because we're caretakers of this. Once it's ruined, that's it.
Yeah, and we giving it away, man. Because even when I was on the force, I know we used to make a lot of arrests. I made quite a few. Jackson Ritchie was famous for that, and I'm sure there's a lot of other officers who would have arrested vessels for what we call illegal fishing. They would catch more than that cruise permit allowed them, right? And we would bring them in because I think back then it was like, I don't know the exact figure. I think it was like 30 pounds per person on board the vessel,
That
right?
has only increased when,
That has
because
increased.
again, remember back then, there was no such thing as an electric reel with computer chip, and now you have from Shimano to, Cristal to every one of these companies out there.
Mm-hmm.
They, the equipment,
The equipment is far more superior, eh?
they can access all this depth range that one never dreamed that would be the case.
Yeah, they get fish finders and depth sounders, and they got things that can find where the fish are.
And they're pressing a button and going
Yeah,
down 2,000 feet. But they're
absolutely.
no cranking and hand line and no more. That's
Everything
why
is,
I say to you,
yeah.
we have very serious issues to deal with as a country.
Mm-hmm.
And either we're gonna look at this or we're gonna let it get like when I went to a meeting in New York and the people were shocked when we talked about commodity legal lodges operating in the Bahamas. And the lady said, well, in our database, they had 3,000 foreign homes in Exuma alone running as illegal businesses. And
Absolutely. Well, I'm not sure. Let me put a pin in that. They got a lot of especially if you go to places like Bryland, right? You got a lot of foreign owned houses that they are actually um, um, what you call Airbnb and renting out, and I'm not sure up to a point now. And maybe nowadays they're supposed to register them, but I don't even think we had laws telling them they need to register. If you own a home, you could do what you want to do with it. But I think that the government is now starting to rope that in and saying if you're going to be renting out your business for short rentals, even for Bahamians, you got to pay the government so much money in fees or whatever the case may be. But
But let's look at that, Glenn, like the voting situation. That's why I tell you, this situation is worse than the average Bahamian realize,
yes,
because you have to look at, let's use the Airbnb when we
scenario.
talk about the maritime. If you have one of the most pristine waters in the world, the view, the beaches,
Yes.
the marine resources, and we got caught asleep. Whereas a guy called me the other day from Exuma, and he said there was a Canadian. There were 14 homes,
Wow.
and he sent me the link, and you can see a minimum of $1,200, a couple $1,000 a day for rental for the homes, right?
Well, you got some right in life with Key, yeah, that going for 15,000 a week and whatnot.
No, but we know it's much more. The point I'm making to you is we were sitting and hoping that, we had this whole thing that there's a hotel going to be built with 50 rooms and so forth, but yet
Yeah.
we end up with thousands of rooms
Right.
that we don't own.
And we get no benefit
And
from.
exactly my point.
Yes.
And so if 3,000 is in Exuma and more under construction, then you do Eleuthera, then you do Abaco and Long Island and Cat Island and San Salvador, and I'm showing you that 10, 15 years from now, the average student you see in the school at 3 o'clock in New Providence, you're going to say, where do the Bahamians fit in their country when it comes to maritime opportunities, ownership opportunities? See, we have to be very deliberate, recognizing that if you have such unique resources, and if you don't manage them and are deliberate with policies to protect your citizens, we're going to get rolled over and run out of our own country. Because we don't look at the examples of the Native Americans and see what happened to them. We don't look at the Aborigines and see what happens to them. You hear all this talk about Greenland. The native people are still there. But it's to the point where nobody even talk about them as if they don't count.
They don't matter, right? It's only the countries that Greenland, for example. Of course, the president of the U.S. is saying that he's going to take it by the hook or by the crook, by force or not by force, whatever, he can take it, right? And we have Copenhagen, what's that up there? That Greenland's supposed to be like, coming under them as just like Turks and Caicos comes under Britain, what you call it, colonial. They're supposed to be a colony of what's that place name up there where Copenhagen is?
Denmark.
Denmark.
I've been to Denmark, yeah.
Right, I've been there too, but I keep forgetting how to call the name because them Danish people are so boring. So they're supposed to be a colony of Denmark, right? And President Trump is saying, I'm going to take it anyway. So that puts a tailspin on everything because now Denmark is a part of NATO, and then all the other NATO countries saying, oh, well, that's not the way to go. The U.S. shouldn't be able to go and take over property that is under one of us. All of us supposed to be one.
Doing that to each other, Glenn. And you look at hundreds of years history.
Yeah.
I remember with Austria and all them was under Germany, and you think about
even the Caribbean. Some of us were under other people before Britain came in, or before France came in, or before it was always and these colonies away from where they live and all the rest of that. And so I'm just, well, I mean, you mentioned Greenland. Maybe we're taking it off track a bit, right? Let's go back
No,
to
it is very relevant to
what you said, yeah.
that subject area because you're using that example to show you that if we don't take charge of what we have in terms of our resources
Yeah,
and put
somebody
the
will
right
take it away.
structures in place,
Mm-hmm.
there will be no different situation for. That's why I tell you, this situation is a lot worse than we want to admit. Because I can tell you, from leaving the Defense Force when I left in '93,
Mm-hmm.
I never really stopped. It was like I never left the force because, like you, it's just program service to your country, right?
Yes.
So I never really blend in with the civilian world like that because we just used to doing things for the greater good. And so for me, when I began to see all of these issues we were facing, especially growing up in the marine space, the focus for me wasn't just like fly fishing, I had to tackle it from an angle looking at we have all this vast shallow flats resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I will share something with you to show you the public will understand when I make a remark about how bad this situation really is.
Right.
When I went to the world headquarters in Florida, that's called the International Game Fish Association, there was Ronald Thompson there, Permanent Secretary at that time in the Prime Minister's office.
Yes.
Michael Brennan, the Director of Fisheries.
Right.
Code Smith was there. And then the government senior policy advisor, Livingston Marshall, Joel Moxie, and myself were the founding members of the Bahamas Sports Fishing and Conservation Association. But the Americans said to us in the room with such arrogance that, who is BSCA? We've been running things in the Bahamas before 1973.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these were their exact words, and they didn't say that with any humility. They said that like, we can take Greenland or we guarantee to take the oil in Venezuela, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
so I said to Joel, if we try to tackle this issue from the ocean and the flats, we would never get any legislation passed because they're already controlling that space.
yes.
Okay? Now, in 2025, we wouldn't want to admit that we're trying to play catch up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I end up focused on trying to save the fly fishing industry for Bahamians to have a chance in their country in the shallow water. But it was never to the exclusion of the commercial fishing industry, the sports fishing offshore. It was always for me about resources and ownership and empowering our citizens, and also just education and joining with what is blessed us with. But I can tell you, the forces was from the Marina Association
Yes.
to the Sixth Tourism Association, all of them fought against the legislation. The Nature Conservancy, the Bahamas National Trust, Brief, they all fought it. And you know why they fought it?
Mm-hmm.
Then the public needs to know. That's why I can tell you how serious the situation is. I study resources all over the planet.
Yes.
And so when I looked at when most of the living things in the Delta in the world is where we are originally from. So between 30 degrees north and south of the equator,
Mm-hmm.
most of the living things and the resources on the planet
Yeah.
are in that particular zone. Now, if you look at closer to the equator on both sides, and you look at the landmass within that zone, you will see the continent of Africa is the largest landmass in that zone.
Yes.
So when you look at why the Europeans went in there and took over the continent it was always about resources.
Yep.
And the same countries that did that are the same ones who conquered the Caribbean and the Western world.
Absolutely.
So the economic model that we inherited was based on that same philosophy of extracting, exploiting, controlling the resources in the global south. It doesn't matter whether you're in France, as long as you're controlling the uranium or the Niger,
Yep.
you will prosper and the people in Niger will remain in poverty.
Yes.
The same thing in the Bahamas. So you have the offspring of that economic model and ideology. And so if you look at what makes up the Caribbean, you got 33 countries. You have 20 of them are still like territories of the colonial thing, okay?
Oh, that much?
Yes, only 13 so-called have political independence. That
Okay.
includes the Bahamas.
Right. Wow. I thought it
So
was...
out of those 13 that have so-called political independence, not one of them, the closest one has ever gotten to it was the country of Cuba.
Yeah.
And you see the forces that they're up against.
Boy, they barely survive, and I mean, I don't know how they survive, because if what happened to them happened to us, we'd be finished.
Exactly my point. But one of the things they have is determination and the will to survive.
Yeah, you could kind of compare Cuba with Haiti, and then you'll know the difference is only the Cuban system is what caused them to survive the way they did.
Exactly. And so therefore they focus on educating their population,
Yep.
engineers, medical field, and then they export the fighting against that ideology all over the world. Because more than 10,000 Cubans died on the continent of Africa fighting to try to liberate us.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
all of this ties right into your subjects of the day, Glenn, because I'm showing you these examples to show you that if we don't deal with our situation, and we just think that this is about voting fees,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, when you and I are not here,
Yeah.
the next generation are going to look back and say, you know what? The leaders of the Bahamas missed it because the tsunami was coming at them and they could have done something about it.
But they just fell asleep at the wheel.
They fell asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
They fell asleep, the Aborigines, the native people, and so you got to see democracy is something that you have to be prepared to earn. And you
Yes.
have to be deliberate. So we have to make some serious shifts where if I was the leader of this country, and I know you have a Glenn Bean here,
Mm-hmm.
we should stop kind of paying lip service to empowering people like you and I who have the skill and the commitment to our country, but they have a problem with seeing you with $50 or $100 million. You know why? Because you and I will use those resources to empower so many others.
Yeah, but not only that, it's so bad that if you or me, with all the skills and experience we have, doesn't wear a color, we're gonna remain ostracized.
That's what I'm talking about. I live
You
there
know,
7 days a week.
and I ain't gonna wear no color, so I guess I'll remain ostracized for a long, long time, if not forever.
Yeah, because we're concerned about the national interest of our country,
Yes, sir.
and that puts you in a very difficult situation. I always tell people I'm a student of Clarence Bean. Now, people can interpret that with their political thing, but what it means for me is when it comes to empowering a Bahamian,
Yeah.
I am interested in that. I am concerned that the children in Mangrove Bush, who are of a lighter hue, deserve the same thing as the children in Montel Heights.
Yeah.
They know better. So the children in Liza Key, to me, know better than the children in Dane Town. right?
Yep.
That's a national interest. And yet you have this layer, this thinking that has got us into this situation. You pointed out earlier about the boating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I could tell you, I spoke to some of the charter yacht persons because me and a few guys, we was like, you know, we see these big yachts coming with 3 and 4 flats boats. We got to look into this. And I want to share with the public just one of the yacht brokers we spoke to. One of the yachts was chartered for $1.9 million for
Yep.
the charter. This is for a week.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 14% fee meant that the government was to get $267,000.
Of that one charter.
Just one charter. But
Yeah.
there's thousands of these out there, Glenn.
Oh yeah, I know. I had this book when I was deputy port controller. One of the yachtmen, when I went to one of the yacht shows, they gave me this book called a CDI guide. I don't think they've made it. And that guide, and I'm sure they have similar books, right? Gave you the name of every single vessel that charters out of the U.S. Florida coast. Um, and once we see one of those vessels in our waters, we should be able to go to that guide, and it tells you how much they charter for per week, how much people they carry. So once they're here, we have the information to figure out how much we should have made from that vessel, right? And the things I started to do then is I started to check the marinas, and I had the marinas sending me on a daily basis all the vessels that checked in. And I would keep that going. And I had Mr. Stubbs, God bless his soul, who worked with me in the port department. He would go and he would visit those marinas and do a spot check. And we started to chase them up. And this is how I found out that most of those charter yachts, they pay to the broker the charter fees, but the broker wasn't giving it to the port department.
Exactly my point.
Right?
You got it.
And so what we need to do is we need to link those wardens in the land and sea park, and I understand most of them are defense force personnel.
That's why I have an issue, Glenn. I know you and I.
Link them with the port department, who's supposed to be chasing up these fees. The port department need to again get on these marinas and make sure they're giving them information whenever a vessel check in, and cross-reference that with all the charter vessels. We need to do spot check, because when you start to catch one or two of them, the rest will fall in line. The persons who may have collected that money, those brokers, would have to fall in line, because now when the owner say, but we gave it to the broker, and then we realize the broker never gave it to us, now the broker could get put in court, eh? So what we need to do is we need to make sure a couple of things, PI. First of all, we need to make sure that every single vessel that enters the Bahamas, whether they're going to be charter vessels or whether they're going to be pleasure vessels, they all have to pay the routine entry fee, and none of them could pay for fishing permit, because we need to stop that. They're not allowed to fish now. If you want fish, buy it from a Bahamian. Buy it from a Bahamian fisherman or some Bahamian who could get that fish for you. But you cannot go and get your own fish, right? Because the fish in the Bahamas is one of our most precious commodity. And if we allow the foreigners to continue coming in here and wreaking our fish in droves and carrying it back out of the country, we shooting ourselves in the foot. If you give somebody for $300 or even $1,000 a fishing permit, you can fish, but you have to buy this permit. Why you want to give them the opportunity or the option to fish in our waters? No, you can game fish, but you can only catch it and put it back in the sea. You can't bring it into the marina and clean it and cut it up and put it in your freezer, so that when you get back home, you could.
You're making sense, but you're talking World War VI, right?
No, but we need World War VI, because we need to fix this.
That's my point. I'm showing you how we don't want to talk about how serious the situation really is, because I said to you earlier, they're not going to stop making boats.
No, it ain't going to stop.
They're pumping them out the factory like cars pumping out the auto plant.
But because of the beauty of our waters, we will still have, because I want you to know, those high-end yachts, right? Those yachts that cost $200 and $1 million, and they got some of them coming here. Those high-end yachts, they don't need to fish. Their freezers are stocked with salmon and all of the most exquisite fish in the world for their guests, right? They don't need to fish. You got a lot of people coming in here with their families. They don't need to fish. They don't care about fishing in. They use the restaurants, and if they want fish, they go to the local fellow on the family island, and they say, I need some fish, go get me some fish, yada, yada. And they pay for it, right? My thing is, any boat could have fresh fish, but you are not allowed to put any fish in your freezer. And if you're caught with any fish in your freezer, you're locked up. And this is how we got to carry on. And I don't care what boat it is. I don't care whether they come to charter or you come for pleasure. You cannot put our fishery products in your freezers.
Well, you know, that's why I said to you, we got to get serious about the situation, because another thing, Glenn, what we're facing as a nation, on a scale of 1 to 10, I am being generous when I say a 0.1 in terms of our knowledge about the resources of our country. Because you know, as a Defense Force officer, when you start telling a Bahamian about a clean-eyed snapper and a silk snapper and a black snapper and a mystic grouper and a snowy grouper, 99% of the population don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, we only know about Nassau grouper, we know about red snapper, we know about lane snapper. That's about it.
I just had swordfish for dinner. Now we know.
Man, you trying to tease me, man.
I was trying to tell you, and I got some fresh mango snappers yesterday. The point is, the marine resources in our country, when you take the Bahamians, you realize people coming and catching these swordfish.
No, they shouldn't be allowed to. Now, if they catch it, you release it so someone else could catch it next year or next 2 months, and we'll have our waters be full of swordfish, and a lot of game fishermen will come just to be able to game those fish.
That's why I was trying to tell you what's going on, but you and I both know. That's why I tell you about the technology, the gear out there.
They're abstracting them, and that's why we got to be able to. You can't. Number one, you can't ever have a swordfish on your boat because you can't eat all that in one day.
That's what I'm talking about.
So you can't put it in your freezer.
You know, I got the swordfish to show you the amount of salt. This was a 400-pound plus fish.
Yeah, that should never been cleaned.
It came in Kang Sam.
Wow.
Probably with the temperature or whatever it is.
Wow.
But, you know, he said, oh man, it's too much for me.
It's too much for any one person.
I said, my friend, I said, man, you know, that's such a unique fish.
Yeah.
You know, but the point I'm making is...
That should have gone back in the water.
But these resources are big, Glenn. These resources are being extracted.
Yes.
We don't have a clue.
No, and we need to make sure that stuff. Our government need to understand that we don't need people to abstract our resources for them to want to come here. And the ones who want to come here to extract our resources, we don't want them here.
But Glenn, that's why I say to you how serious this is. I go back to that.
Wow.
You got to talk to Shimano and Daiwa and Penn.
Yeah.
And the 50 other rod and reel manufacturers and all of the gear, the lure companies, these factories and the Bahamas. When you look at the Bahamas from outer space, Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder can see
the beauty of it.
How unique and beautiful it is.
That's right. That's right.
And so either we get serious about recognizing that our number one resource in the country besides our people is the marine environment and the resources therewith.
That is correct.
And the land and the health of the land is just as important to protect it. But we pay a lot of lip service to it. I'm going to share something with you to show you how serious this issue is, and all tied to the maritime space. We had a conclave the other day. There were fly fishing guys came from Inagua to Grand Bahama, And there was a whole issue discussion around forestry. So I asked the director of forestry, I said, well, tell me what is your annual budget for forestry? And $100,000. I said, you have 700 islands, 2,300 keys, all in the mangroves nursery system come under forestry. But you only get $33.33 for each island. But that is the reason why I stress to you, Glenn,
Yeah, that ain't enough.
how the environmental fee,
Mm-hmm.
it is a crisis situation that we deal with, because a lady said to me in the PMs, she said, Mr. Smith, if we approve 1/10 of the proposal of project, there would be nothing left in the Bahamas for Bahamians. So you have to ask yourself, if we are tearing out the mangroves,
Yeah.
destroying the coastline, and I'm talking about the coastline, let's say 20 people in Exuma see a natural, what we call that weathered rock formation, rock coastline with like cliffs, where all the lobsters would be under it, and habitat for marine life, right?
Yes.
So they tear that down. Now they want to put an artificial beach.
Wow.
And let's say...
And all those beaches we get in this country, they won't put an artificial beach somewhere?
Yeah, but see, they ain't checking for that, man, because then they want to sell that Airbnb.
Yeah.
People coming down from Canada, and they coming from all these cold places. To them, this is heaven. They need that vitamin D, that crystal clear water.
Yeah.
So we have to see the value of what it is that we have. The point I'm making to you is, if we're going to facilitate the destruction of something that's unique to the world, the increased numbers of boating, the increased amount of litter, pollution, increased extraction of the resources, and then a declining nursery system to support that, we've been in crisis mood for a long time. We just don't want to admit the serious steps that need to take place. So when I say to you about the boating fees,
Yeah.
my vantage point on the boating fees is we should have been educating the boaters that even the ones who are not fishing, to say, look, even if you don't pay the $500, fine, is there a foundation, or can you give back to opening up this nursery system, cleaning up the coastline? Because if you're going to be bringing in thousands of tons of litter in the country through the boating community that is not leaving the Bahamas,
Right.
how are we going to deal with these things?
So here's what I say to that, PI, and I know we had this discussion on numerous occasions, right? But what I say to that is this: every vessel that enters this country will pay an environmental fee separate and apart from any other charges they would have to enter this country. Just like those who enter at the airport, you pay when you buy your ticket. You pay in for certain things, right? So they pay just like they coming through the airport. But in addition to that, they pay an environmental fee because their vessel is going to be dealing with our treasures, our maritime or marine environment, right? So they would pay that. In addition to that, every Bahamian boat owner is required to register his vessel.
I agree with you with that.
That Bahamian boat owner, when he registers his vessel, separate and apart from that registration fee, he will pay an environmental levy, right? Every car that wants the license to be polluting the air and all the road, they would have to pay an environmental levy.
But the money's got to go not just in some big hole.
No, the monies will go in the treasury, and from that treasury, the budget for the Minister of the Environment or the Ministry of the Environment will get all of those levies. So now they can provide officers for enforcement. They can follow up on things. They could improve, because I can tell you a lot of these yachters come in here and they want to get rid of their garbage. They want to get rid of their waste. But we don't have reception facilities readily available in many cases. So this is where this levy is going to go. This is going to be able to accommodate anything you got to get rid of on your vessel.
And then even when we get rid of that, the point I'm making to you is, where does it go? What are we doing with
well, we need to have landfills. We need to have landfills and whatnot, right?
My lodge, Glenn, I've been recycling cans and bottles and this from years. And you know the most frustrating thing for me is when they pile up, what do we do with them?
So what do they do with them anywhere else in the world, B.I.?
This is my point, is you don't have the support system to say, you know, when Glenn is recycling at Stafford Creek Lodge and he get 10 garbage bags full of cans, where's the support system that takes that aluminum, crushes it, and then recycles to produce new things? Because you could recycle that, 10,000 times. Aluminum is aluminum, right? Yeah. It's not going to go anywhere. Same thing with glass.
And plastics.
Yeah, so the point is, when we talk about this environmental fee, and that's why I want to caution you, because you have to increase the budget for Ministry of the Environment, but you need to have a specific thing that this fund goes into, that it can only be used to say, Glenn Bain has a contract to clean up the coastlines of the Bahamas. And we know that that's being done, but it's not just being cleaned up. Because if I give you a $10 million contract and say, okay, we want you to clean up, but here's some of the things we want you to engage the students in Long Island who's picking up the beach. They're documenting what it is, the students in Eleuthera. Or it could be, you might give contracts in different categories because you have different level of debris taking place. Could be some old wreck you have to cut up, but there could be, 55-gallon drums. There could be a number of things that you have to deal with at different levels. But it just can't be that we can collecting all this hundreds of millions of dollars environmental tax. You should be empowering Bahamians like yourself and then educating the masses. The commercial fisherman who's going out to sea. What happens to all the oil?
Yeah.
What happens to when they change it? Are they just throwing it in the water?
Yeah.
Are they taking all the garbage out there and they just throwing it overboard?
But see,
you and I both know this is what is happening.
Yeah, but these things can be addressed by numerous systems, right? For example, you talk about the vessel and getting rid of its oil. This is something that happened in the real world with soulless vessels all over the world. There's over 50,000 vessels that trade over the world. They have something called an IOPP certificate, right? An International Oil Pollution Prevention Certificate that has to be managed. These local vessels we have, these vessels are required to carry what you call a local safety certificate. And that local safety certificate is supposed to be based on safety on board that vessel and pollution prevention from that vessel. And the Bahamas Maritime Authority is quite aware. See, I learned this when I worked with Bahamas Maritime Authority. But they refuse to put this locals, and the law already provide that they do it, But they're just not doing it. Now that's for the oil and the pollution prevention, right? Comes under MAPOL, maritime pollution, right? SOLAS comes on, that's the safety side of it. But what I'm saying is this country needs to move forward with that local safety certificate to take care of those local boats that have to be registered by the port. And when they go to get registered, they have to get surveyed. And the survey will ask, how do you get rid of your garbage when you're out to sea? How do you get rid of your waste oil? And they have to produce evidence of how they do it, right? This is the only way these things can happen through enforcement.
But
now,
you think when the commercial fishing boats come back from out to sea, that there's anyone inspecting to make sure that the garbage is on that boat?
But they're not required to carry a local safety certificate to begin with. So there's no enforcement system in place the way it ought to be in the way it is in most major countries in the world. These things you're supposed to pass down to your local vessels by way of a local safety certificate that the Bahamas Maritime Authority continue to ignore. And I continue to preach it.
So we're blessed with one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and yet you and I could sit here on this show, and this is why I'm very disturbed of how the boating fee subject was just based around what the boats are paying, and there was never a discussion about the environment, the protection of our nursery system, and such. I mean, there's a long list of things.
Well, that's the reason why the environmental
levy. We allow this area to be dominated. And, Glenn, we don't need to call anybody's name, but we know.
We know.
We know the corrupt interest.
Yes, there's a lot of corrupt interest.
Most loud noise out there.
Yeah.
Because somebody took away their contract.
Yes.
Okay, to collect these fees.
Yes.
And then they get to define and get the public all riled up, lobbying, using it as a political football, and then drown out any discussion in our national interest about, how many yachts are not coming in and it's going to hurt the tourism. But they have no interest in Glen Bean or Prescott Smith ever owning a 65-foot sports fishing boat, or no interest in the 40, 50,000 captains coming. Rather, we can have 10% Bahamians engaged as captains, second in charge, engineers, professional chefs, instead of young men and them shooting up each other and robbing, learning about the true nature of their country, creating hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign exchange into our economy instead of reaping havoc on the streets.
Yeah, but Prescott,
we don't have these discussions.
Prescott, I hear you, right? I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear. And what you're saying make all the sense in the world. But these people that you mentioned and that I know, that we know, these people have no obligation to have that sort of interest or responsibility. That we pay government officials to create and expand for opportunities of Bahamian in the maritime sector, and they don't do it. We have a school called the LJM where we can encompass these type of things to make people yacht captains, to make people this. And if we, the government entities that have these responsibilities and are being paid to do these type of things, if we don't put pressure on them to do it, we could say what we want to say, but the fellow who private and have his own interest. Yes, if he could rip the system off, he could do that. Yes, he's not interested in Bahamians doing these things because he's making money from the foreigners. But where are the authorities that have this obligation and are being paid to do these things? That's where my focus got to go.
That's my point right there. Where
the authorities are singing mum's the word because they don't want nothing to do with it. Because when you get the BMA office in London, they don't care about what's going on in the Bahamas. The headquarters with all the technical staff in London. You think they care about what's going on in this country?
No, they using our marine environment making billions because they got all their super tankers and container ships running in our water.
Yeah, so we need the government.
That game is played at that level.
Our Ministry of Transport need to take charge of the situation, check into the details of what their obligation is in this country with our local fleet, and ensure that they're doing it. Because if the minister and the prime minister don't make them do it, they never going to pay any attention to it.
Most of these politicians don't even touch salt water.
Exactly. Me and you could talk till we blue in the face. You and me could talk till we blue in the face. They are not going to check unless it comes from up above them. So commitment has to be at the top for this to happen. And I keep preaching and you keep preaching, but who's listening to us? You think the top listening to us? You think the people who could make the difference listening to you and me? Yes, of course the general public listens to us. But at some point, Now, see, I'm not the type of person who say, "Oh, we need to stage a protest and this and that and the next." Because my thing is, I gotta let you know what the deal is, right? That's my job. My job ain't to take it further. Because if nobody take it further, you can't say Glenn Bean didn't tell you.
Exactly.
And that's where I stop. And I can continue telling you. But I hope that at some stage of the game, those that makes the decision and that could put the directive to the BMA and to the port department ensures that they do what they're supposed to do with these charter yachts. They do what they're supposed to do with this local fleet as far as environmental protection and all the rest of that. And somehow this country get an environmental levy for every vessel that got to be registered, every vessel that enters this country, and that money is put into the budget of the Ministry of Environment, and the Ministry of Environment does these things that you talk about. Give out contracts for people to make sure the coastline remains in a satisfactory standard. Give out contracts to make sure that there's a dispository system for these fellas who got their fishing boat to dump their oil, to dump their stale fish, they this, they that. It's so much that can be done once you're getting that funding into the Treasury, and that is channeled into the budget of the Ministry of the Environment and utilized as contracts to get things done. Well, of course, once you start giving out contracts, you know it'll be a color-coded thing. And that's another issue.
The greed and corruption kicks in.
That's another issue. But if we get companies that are well established and are doing these jobs, it doesn't really matter which color is in power, because they already have established companies that they can use. And this is the way I see forward as far as making a change to protect our marine environment by way of these vessels having the system to not be compelled to discharge improperly. These vessels having the ability or the mandate to assist with the levy that they're creating, and all the rest of it. I mean, we have to.
You know what's so sad about this, Ryan? What is so sad about it is all the boaters come into this country. We don't even take 1 minute to ever speak to them about our environment, about the do's or don'ts.
But I think we can speak to them, right? But
very sad message.
Yeah, but PI, those boats are spoken to, They're spoken to before they even come here. I can tell you, I came through the U.S. system. I worked with Coast Guard for 6 months, right? I came through the U.S. system of
At some point, they got to clear our customs and immigration. The point I'm trying to show you is these are areas to we as a country, even if we handed out an educational pamphlet to them, right? It sends a message of who we are as a people and say you're enjoying these waters, the third largest reef in the world, blah, blah, blah. If you wish to contribute to conservation efforts, these are organizations. See, there's so much we could do to educate the boaters.
But we could do that on the entry clearance. That could be part of the entry clearance information we give out.
This is my point I'm trying to show you.
But what are we going to do with our fishing fleet? What are we going to do with our mail boats? What are we going to do with all these local boats? What don't have a clue, and they don't care, and they flushing toilets all the time in the sea. They dumping garbage when they're in remote areas, and they don't even try to do what you do at your lodge. They don't even try and segregate their stuff so they could bring some things back home.
They're not interested in that at night.
But that is more damaging than
mailboat traveling to the family island, everything going overboard.
Man, let me tell you something. When I was in Mediterranean Sea, I was a midshipman on what they call a DTS, the Dartmouth training ship, right? And we would go to sea for 6 weeks, and an announcement, because sometimes we'd be on the sea for a week and a half, 2 weeks, right, before we get to the next port. And they would make an announcement on a daily basis. When we get in certain areas away from land, they would say, garbage can now be ditched. and you will see tons of garbage going into the sea in plastic bags.
Wow.
And this was in 82. I am telling you, this is the way it was. And in this country, and you would know, even when we're under defense force, even when we're under defense force, if we go into Kisal and
before we caught friends,
once
at
we,
the end of the day, they know where the garbage is to go.
you can imagine going from Kisal to Kilobus and then Ragged Island. Where you can put your garbage. You generating garbage. You got 16 men on the boat eating every day. You generating garbage all the time.
Right.
So we never used to wait to go on a key and dig a hole and put the garbage in the hole, because that was not practical. But I'm just saying that if even the Defense Force fleet could be educated to that extent, they could start doing some things and make sure you only put in the sea what is biodegradable and you keep some of the stuff. These are things that can be done, but we don't do it even with our local people. That's what I'm saying.
That's the point I'm making you. But the point is we have to do it, because when we continue to go this way, I mean, you saw the brief video I sent you.
Yes.
The garbage doesn't just disappear into thin air.
Absolutely.
Every bit we throw in the water, it's coming up on the coast somewhere.
Even in our homes, PI. I mean, you go to my daughter lives in Texas, right? She lives in Houston. And when she puts out her garbage, you have different bins for different type. You got one for plastics, you got one for just general garbage, you got and the garbage truck, and they come around and they take those things that are already segregated, and when they reach the dump site, they recycle. Why can't we do that here?
We can do it, Glenn. To start with us, in my home here, Glenn, and if I could tell you, I could leave my garbage in the house for a month. You'll never know. For a year. You know why?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a 5-gallon bucket with a proper cover on it, and I rake all food items in that, I live near the water.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that we can do with composting and recycling. They have a blue bin, and I throw all the cans in there. So, as you know, the frustrating part is where's the stages of these things. But we have to start somewhere as a country, because the Bahamas that we are called to be caretakers of. And when, it's a sad thing when we look at the Providence, we want to cut down every tree.
Oh, yeah.
We want to
cut down every hill. Every what we call hill, because there ain't really no hills, but that's little slopes, right? But we want to cut them down because we want self-fill. Yeah, and that's how we roll. But I mean, where's the education though? Where's the education, PI? Why? I mean, you and I go to Europe and Asia and the US and Canada, and we see that in certain areas you got to look before you ditch your garbage, because they got three on side and they are labeled, right?
Not only that, I mean, we just came from a city in Mexico, and I never see a greener city in my life, and then also in Medellin, in Colombia, 5,000 feet. You wake up every morning with 10,000 birds around you. So we're a young country, we can change. The point is, it's all connected to your main thing about maritime, this boating issue, because
Yes, sir.
85% of our country is the marine environment, so we have to change for our survival.
Absolutely. We got less than 10 minutes left here. I gotta ask you this question. I know you've been fighting this battle for a while, right?
Yes.
Morgan's Bluff. Why can we not at this juncture convert Morgan's Bluff, that is already dredged and all the rest of that, need to go a little deeper, into a cruise ship dock?
Let me tell you my issue with Morgan's Bluff in terms of our sovereignty. First of all, any attempt to transfer ownership of that port to these oligarchs would be treason for generations unborn. And that's the fight that is going on here now. The similar than in and around us.
Well, let's not call the names, right? But guess
But
what?
I call them the first name.
I understand, I understand.
They got them
But
on all sides.
I'm thinking in
They like,
terms of that property being owned by water and sewage and now back in the hands of the government, right? Why can't the government, just like how we did with our airport, just like how we did with APD,
yeah, but
get
you
a
asking the $1 trillion question right now on this show when it comes to maritime about Morgan's Bluff. There's only two places that the ocean comes in close to hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
That's Morgan's Bluff and Driggs Hill.
Yes, yes.
Okay?
Yes, you're right.
Morgan's Bluff is the geographical location that is the path to any chance of economic independence for our country, because it is the key port on the island that has over 40% of the land for the country, the largest pine forest for the country, the largest freshwater land, the largest amount of arable land, largest amount of freshwater lakes, the only rivers in the country. We could go on and on about the resources.
Absolutely.
So he who controls that port at the end of the day, and it says globally, who controls the port controls your economy.
Well, if we could have 100% Bahamian ownership, because Bahamians buy shares and the government shares with it, and it's owned by Bahamians, and cruise ships could come there, and cargo ships could come there and land their goods. What's wrong with that? Why are we not moving to that?
I am not opposed to your idea. I think it's an excellent one, but here's where I want us to define when we talk about ships. Remember the geography of Andros, with all its thousands of logging roads and nature-based. So we can have the kind of cruise passenger who wants to enjoy the unique environment of the largest amount of blue holes in the world.
That's correct.
Because if you send Andros on a path of destroying the largest nursery system, mangrove nursery system in the country that feeds the Great Bahama Bank that most of the commercial fishermen come on. So the uniqueness about Andros is people who come on that ship, they should be specialty crews that deals with nature-based tourism.
Absolutely, and they're gonna have tours, go into Red Base to see the sponge operation. So why are we not doing this though?
We can have some of them come and they want to lie, but you can't have them come and you're looking for no casino.
No.
Looking for this and looking for that will destroy and mow down the forest. So the agro-tourism, nature-based tourism.
We talk about nature tours.
Exactly.
And every single island has this unique nature tour arrangement.
Every island. It's a gold mine. Then my issue about this port.
But Morgan's Bluff is the lowest hanging fruit, because we know we had ships going in there, and that can be readily. They got a dock basically already in place that just need to be extended and made a little bigger. The turning basin just need to be expanded. That area where the mailboat goes, we can set that up for vessels, cargo vessels coming. I talking about Bahamian owned vessels. I'm not even talking about big cargo ships. I talking about Bahamian owned cargo vessels clearing there and then going to other islands and dropping their goods off.
You got it.
So why can't this happen though?
You're on the right track. Trust me, you hit it on the path, because you're talking maritime here, and this is the path, and most Bahamians don't understand why I pay so much attention to this port. When they sign that hour deal, they say you can't build another port within 22 miles.
Yeah, that's where Morgan's Bluff comes in, eh?
Morgan's Bluff is the path.
Yes.
Any chance of breaking these monopolies that hold the majority of our citizens hostage.
But that's where we need to go. We need to free up our family islands.
You got it.
Because this idea of all of our goods coming into Nassau first and then going out by May, that's a bunch of foolishness.
But guess what? If you allow them to get Morgan's Bluff, who control Nassau, then they control the rest of the country.
We don't want them get it. We want us, me, you, and everybody else have shares. Only Bahamians could buy shares. Native Bahamians could buy shares, and we will set up a contingent, a board, and whatnot. Just like how the airport is run, we could bring in people to run that.
I'm glad it needs to happen, but I want to caution you here because your plan is an excellent one that needs to be followed. But I always think about when you and I are not here. We need to set it up where it remains
continuous
in the full hands and control of the Bahamian citizens.
Absolutely, and that's only the first one of many to come because we got Eleuthera, we got Cat Island, we got Exuma, Rum. All of them need the same thing. So we'll have Bahamians owning all of these ports.
Yes, because let's just say at the end of the day that you and I do Morgan's Bluff and we have this commitment to our national development.
Yeah.
But now your children come behind, grandchildren say, man, I don't know what Daddy was talking about. I get it, this so I can buy me a jet and I'm flying all over the world. And they don't understand that 70% of the population that live on New Providence has already been locked in, and that decision was made before they were born.
But we'll have a mass exodus from New Providence if we put cruise ship piers in all of these family islands, because people could go back home and get big-time jobs.
Not only that, Glenn, you will lower the cost of living for even those who live in Nassau, because the monopoly that they have on the port means that they can charge you whatever they want, because they not only control the port, they control food distribution.
They've controlled everything.
You think they're interested in ever coming to give $1 to BAMC for food security?
Well, we got to keep pressure on our government. We got to keep preaching. Like I say, you and I could talk to every blue in the face. We ain't got no color. It's hard for them to listen, but at some point they have to listen. Pi. So you got the last say. We got one more.
Listening to this thing, as we saying, and eyes and ears are opening up.
Yeah, but we got.
Like you said the other time, that I'm going into another important thing now, really dealing with trying to raise awareness to open up all these nursery systems around the country.
Right.
I would like for us to talk about that as one of your things in depth when it comes to the maritime.
My brother,
to educate the public.
This show is open to you.
Yeah.
This show is open to you, whether you're going to be calling them by phone or you'll be live in person. This show is open to you whenever you're ready. You just let me know, give me a heads up, and we go with it.
Okay, brother. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Have a great time, and keep up the good work you're doing. But
Appreciate it, man.
So much. You know, we're supposed to song, but
we're
supposed to talk in the water.
Yes. But
we could dissect the boat and fee structure. That's a whole show just dealing with one little area of that, right?
Yeah, but we could keep talking, man. Our agenda is ongoing. So whenever, if you get time next week, we could just continue on, and then the week after. And
yeah, we need to continue on.
We need to get this going.
So much to talk about, important stuff in this here, because then the violations are huge. Sometimes it bothers me when I fish these guys. I remember I shared a story with you with Langlucy, man. Cost almost $200 million to fill one of my tankers.
Wow.
And we use in the waters of the Bahamas. They're running lightering operations. And yet there's not a dollar environmental fee. So how could that be right, Prescott?
That's how they roll. That's why we need to put this environmental levy in place for not only the yachts, not only the Bahamian local fleet, but the cruise ships, the cargo ships that go to Arawak Port, the tankers that go to Clifton Pier and Barco and all of every single one of them would have to pay this levy.
That's my point I'm trying to show you.
Yeah. So
the cruise ship industry that, has been raping the Caribbean.
Yes.
For decades and decades. You try to tell me, and the point I'm showing you, Glenn, because I know we both have to, I want to share this with you. I have many friends who are sincere all over the globe, and I can have these discussions with them freely. but I want to share with you with ideology. I remember when the head of the U.S. Embassy came to visit me in our fight for the fly fishing legislation.
Oh, we got to talk about that next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I shared something with him that really shocked him. He said they were getting thousands of letters about this Prescott Smith
What?
trying to shut down this legislation. And I said to him, I said, when I showed him the resources, and I said, you cannot protect this unless you empower the local citizens themselves to want to protect it.
Right.
And I said, if you look at where this fight is coming from and the ideology, I asked him a question. I said, let's be honest about what this really is about. I said, those who conquered the continent of Africa colonized the Caribbean. I said, those countries that sat at the Berlin Conference, name me one country on the planet where they have ever gone to and treated the locals as equals.
Never. Always below their feet.
So you see why the fellow who's fighting with all this noise about boating fees has no interest in seeing 10,000 Bahamian captains and Bahamians own marinas and Bahamians like you and the Maritime at all the different level in leadership making decisions for our country, because we only supposed to serve at a certain level. That's an ideology.
Yeah, you're right. Well, with that, my brother.
That's the part when I tell you about the noise about the fees.
Yeah.
A lot of it is wrapped around ideology that we are not, even if you put up the marina fees 10 times more, not a peep about it. When you ask for something for the Native American or the Aborigines, and then you will understand that ideology that says we will take your coffee, we will take the gold, we will take the platinum at the end of the day, and if we have to come in and take your oil, we'll do that too.
Yeah, I leave you with one name, because with that, the show ran out 5 minutes ago. Let's just close out. But I leave you with one name, and we talk about that some more. Ibrahim Traore.
Yes, that's
Thank you very much. So you take care, my brother, and we'll keep in touch. The show is always open to you, so we'll keep talking.
I always following that what's going on there. That's our brother doing a good job. I wish I could get him over here to take him fly fishing.
Absolutely. Okay, Prescott. Hey,
the boat, man.
Thanks
he need a break with the kind of pressure he has to.
Boy, you ain't got the kind of security be able to keep him out there. So much people want him dead. Man, you'll be going with him too. Yes, sir. Yeah, so thank you so much.
The only difference is they can be fined with 50 missiles on me.
I telling you, man.
All right, man. Looking forward to the next show.
Yes, sir. We'll keep it alive. Thank you so much,
Right,
and you take care. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We fresh out of time, long time. I thank my good producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, for allowing me to go 2 minutes over. Okay, 5. Craig laughing at me. You have been listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, our special guest for the night, and you was listening to him straight through. Thank you so much, Mr. Prescott P.I. Smith, out of Central Andros, and he was on the line. He'll be in studio someday soon. Our sponsors for the night, same ones, Bahamas Maritime Connection, and the 2 pharmacies, Island Care Pharmacy and Freeport, and of course, 101 Pharmacy in Nassau. Good night again, Annie Mae. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you, PI, for such a splendid show. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, as always, say to you, Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.